Imagine this: a young, vibrant mother cradling her newborn baby in her arms, her face glowing with joy and hope for the future. She's not just any mother, she's a soldier, proudly wearing her uniform, serving her country with honor. Her life seems like a picture-perfect story of love, dedication, and endless possibilities. She has a husband who vowed to protect her, a promising career, and a tiny baby who just became her whole world. It sounds like a dream come true, doesn't it? But dreams can turn into nightmares when the people you trust the most aren't who they seem to be. What if the man who promised to love and protect you had a different plan? What if the person you believed in most was hiding a dark, dangerous secret? What if everything you thought was real was a lie? This is the story of Carlin Ramirez, a woman who had her whole life ahead of her, a devoted mother and a dedicated soldier who wanted nothing more than to build a happy life for her family. But Carlin never saw what was coming. She didn't know that behind the smiles and promises was a storm brewing, one fueled by jealousy, suspicion, and betrayal. A storm so deadly it would shatter everything in its path. Carlin's life seemed perfect on the outside, but was it? What was really happening behind the walls of her home? What led to the devastating moment that would leave her family, her friends, and her entire community asking one chilling question: why? Why did it happen? Carlin trusted her husband, Malik Kearney, with everything. But trust can be fragile, and love, when twisted by jealousy, can become something far more dangerous. While Carlin focused on her baby and her future, her husband was focused on something else entirely, something that would lead to a tragedy no one could have imagined. This isn't just another true crime story. It's a cautionary tale about trust, love, and the secrets that people carry. Secrets that, when uncovered, reveal just how far someone is willing to go. But here's the thing. It's not just about what happened. It's about why it happened. And it's about the shocking choices that led to one young mother's tragic end.
Have you ever wondered how far someone would go to hold on to a toxic relationship? What would you do if protecting someone you love came at the cost of hurting someone else? Note:
This is the story of Carlin Ramirez. And it's not just tragic, it's chilling. Stay with me, because what happened to her will leave you questioning everything you think you know about love, loyalty, and trust. 2. What happened to Carlin Ramirez, and why? Let's begin. Carlin Ramirez was just 24 years old. Imagine that. A young woman full of life and ambition, someone who had so much ahead of her. She wasn't just a soldier, though that alone would make anyone proud. No. Carlin was so much more than the uniform she wore. She was a mother, a wife, and a daughter who brought so much joy to everyone around. Born with a heart full of determination, Carlin joined the U.S. Army and quickly became the pride of her family. She was driven, confident, and ready to take on the world. Serving her country wasn't just a job for Carlin, it was her calling, a way to make a difference while creating a future for her family. Her radiant smile had a way of lighting up the darkest rooms, and her laugh was infectious. Carlin wasn't just admired, she was loved. But there was one role that Carlin cherished above all else: being a mother. At just 24, Carlin had given birth to a beautiful baby girl. That tiny bundle of joy became her whole world. Friends say Carlin poured her heart into motherhood, staying up late, cradling her baby, and dreaming of the future they would build together. She wanted her daughter to have the best life possible, a life full of love and security. But Carlin also had dreams for her marriage. She married Malik Kearney, a fellow soldier, and believed she had found her partner in life. To Carlin, Maliak wasn't just her husband, he was her teammate, someone who would stand beside her through thick and thin. Together they were supposed to build a future, raise their child, and support each other through the challenges of military life. But even the brightest smiles can hide the deepest struggles. Carlin never spoke much about the cracks in her marriage, but those close to her say she carried burdens she didn't share. Little did she know, the man she trusted most, the one she believed would stand by her side, was hiding something far darker than she could ever imagine. Her life seemed perfect on the outside, but how often do we look closer? How often do we see the signs that something isn't right until it's far too late? Have you ever felt like someone close to you wasn't being completely honest? That maybe, just maybe, there was something they weren't telling you? Let's talk about it in the comments. Because in Carlin's case, the truth was far more devastating than anyone could have. Malik Kearney? On paper, he was everything you'd expect from a soldier. A man of discipline, someone who understood the weight of honor, and a partner who seemed perfectly suited for Carlin. As a fellow member of the US Army, Kearney shared the unique bond of military life with his wife. He knew the long hours, the sacrifices, the demands of the job. To the outside world, they were a power couple, strong, dedicated, and ready to conquer life's challenges together. But appearances can be deceiving. Beneath the uniform, Malik Kearney was a man fighting battles of his own, a man with a controlling nature that only grew stronger over time. Friends and colleagues described him as someone who needed to be in charge, someone who thrived on power and dominance. At first, Carlin may have seen this as confidence, as strength. But over time, that confidence began to reveal cracks. Kearney struggled with insecurity, particularly when it came to Carlin. He had trouble trusting her, doubting her loyalty and questioning her every move. And the worst part? He never spoke about these fears. Not to Carlin, not to anyone. Instead, he let them fester, growing in the shadows of his mind like a slow, creeping storm. Every text message Carlin sent, every phone call she made, every glance in another direction, it all became fuel for Kearney's imagination. His thoughts weren't just paranoid, they were toxic. And instead of confronting Carlin, instead of talking to her, Kearney let his doubts turn into something far more dangerous. His marriage, once built on love and trust, became a ticking time bomb, and instead of diffusing it, Kearney was adding more fuel, more doubt, more resentment. To the world outside, Kearney was still the dutiful soldier, the devoted husband. But inside, he was someone else entirely, a man whose jealousy was eating him alive. But here's the thing. Jealousy doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It builds, slowly and deliberately, feeding on insecurities and growing into something uncontrollable. The real question is, what happens when that jealousy reaches its breaking point? Kearney didn't just question Carlin's loyalty, he allowed it to consume him. And the more he doubted her, the more his mind turned to dark possibilities. What started as a crack in their relationship was quickly becoming a chasm. And the people around them? They had no idea what was coming. Have you ever been in a situation where confidence and talent became a target for others' insecurities? What is it about power dynamics that can turn admiration into resentment? And most importantly, how can we better recognize the red flags that signal danger before it's too late? As Carlin poured her heart into raising her baby and balancing the demands of military life, her husband, Maliak Kearney, was busy with someone else, Dolores Delgado. But Delgado wasn't just a fling. This wasn't a passing affair or a fleeting moment of infidelity. Dolores Delgado was much more than that. She became a central figure in what would soon spiral into an unthinkable chain of events. Delgado wasn't an innocent bystander in Kearney's life, far from it. She became his confidant, his accomplice, and his enabler. The two of them shared a bond, not one built on love, but on bitterness. Delgado wasn't just a listener, she was an active participant, someone who encouraged Kearney's darkest thoughts and validated his growing suspicions about Carl. To understand Delgado's role, you have to understand their relationship. She wasn't just a mistress, she was a partner in a toxic, secretive connection fueled by resentment. The more Kearney confided in her, the more she fed his paranoia. Instead of offering reason or perspective, Delgado did the opposite. She didn't just listen to Kearney's doubts about Carlin, she added to them, stoking the fire of his jealousy until it became all-consuming. At first, their conversations were just whispers, whispers of frustration, whispers of doubt. But whispers have a way of growing louder when no one's listening. What started as private grievances between two people soon turned into something far more dangerous. Something that would change Carlin's life forever. Delgado didn't just stand by as Kearney's paranoia grew, she actively fueled it. She didn't just sympathize with his doubts, she pushed him toward revenge. It wasn't long before their conversations turned from vague complaints to concrete plans. Plans that were calculated. Delgado wasn't just emotionally involved. She became a key player in Kearney's plot. She provided him with the tools he needed to turn his darkest thoughts into reality. A gun, ammunition, an alibi. This wasn't just an affair anymore. It was an alliance. A partnership in crime. The chilling part? Delgado believed in the plan just as much as Kearney did. She saw herself as part of the solution to his problem. She wasn't just supporting him emotionally, she was fully committed to helping him execute his deadly plan. But why? Why would someone go to such lengths for another person? Was it love? Was it manipulation? Or was it something darker? A willingness to do evil for the sake of loyalty, for the sake of revenge. Do you think love can blind people into doing unthinkable things? Or is this just plain evil? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, because what Delgado did next will leave you questioning everything. August 25, 2015. A quiet, uneventful evening in Severn, Maryland. The kind of night when families gather for dinner, children fall asleep to the hum of lullabies, and the world outside feels calm and safe. But for Carlin Ramirez, this night would mark the end of everything she held dear, and she had no idea it was coming. Carlin tucked her 5-month-old baby into bed, far away in South Carolina. Her husband, Malachi Kearney, was already on his way. He had driven over 450 miles that day, his car cutting through the quiet night with a singular purpose. This wasn't a spontaneous trip. No, this drive was fueled by rage, by jealousy, by a plan so calculated. Malachi wasn't alone in this plan. Back in South Carolina, Dolores Delgado, his mistress and accomplice, had armed him with everything he needed. A gun, ammunition, even an alibi to cover his tracks. She had done her part, and now it was Malachi's turn to finish the job. This wasn't just a moment of anger, it was premeditated murder, a decision made long before the wheels of his car hit the road. As Malachi approached Carlin's home, the neighborhood was silent. The streetlights cast faint glows on the sidewalks, and the houses around her stood still. Inside, Carlin was unaware that someone she had once trusted, someone she had shared vows with, was creeping closer. Her baby, just a few months old, lay peacefully in her crib, innocent and unaware of the storm about to hit. Entered the house quietly, the way only someone who knows the place could. The walls around him had once heard laughter, the cries of a newborn, the promises of a young couple starting their life together. But now they would witness something far darker. Carlin didn't stand a chance. She didn't hear him coming. She couldn't fight back. Malik made sure of that. Shot her. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Each shot echoing through the quiet house, each one tearing apart the life they had built together. And then, silence. Carlin was gone, and Maliek? He didn't stop to grieve. He didn't stop to think about the life he had just taken. He had only one thought: leaving. But here's the part that shocked everyone. Carlin wasn't alone in that house. Just feet away, her baby lay in her crib, unharmed. Maliek spared the child, leaving her behind next to her mother's lifeless body. Was it mercy? Or was it part of his plan to cover his tracks? No one knows for sure. Malik walked out of the house, leaving behind a scene of unimaginable devastation. He drove away into the night, back to South Carolina, where Delgado waited, ready to help him clean up the mess. To them, this was just the next step in their plan. Can you imagine trusting someone so deeply, only to find out they were capable of something so horrifying? What would you do if someone you loved planned something like this? Let's discuss it in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts. The morning of August 26, 2015 began like any other in Severn, Maryland. The sun rose over the quiet streets, and neighbors went about their routines, unaware of the nightmare waiting to be discovered inside Carlin Ramirez's home. As the hours passed, something felt off. Carlin hadn't stepped outside. She hadn't been seen tending to her baby or heading off to her duties as a soldier. Concerned, a neighbor decided to check. What they found inside Carlin's home would haunt them forever. There she was, lying on the floor, motionless. She had been shot 3 times, execution style. But there was something else, something that made the scene even more horrifying. Just a few feet away, her baby, her 5-month-old daughter, was lying beside her, completely unharmed, innocent, fragile, alone. Imagine the sight. A young mother taken violently from this world and her tiny baby left behind. Was it mercy? Was it part of Maliek's twisted plan? Or was it something even darker? A calculated move to create a scene so tragic, so devastating, that it would deflect suspicion from him. Whatever the reason, one thing was clear. This wasn't just a murder. This was a betrayal of the highest order. Malik Kearney didn't just take Carlin's life. He destroyed the future she had dreamed of. The promises they made to each other on their wedding day, the life they were supposed to build together, the love she poured into their daughter, it was all gone. And the baby, she would grow up without her mother, without the person who had loved her most in the world. A tiny child, left to face the consequences of an act she couldn't even understand. The scene was devastating for everyone who saw it. Neighbors, first responders, and even seasoned investigators were shaken by what they found. How could someone be so heartless? How could a father leave his child in such a state, surrounded by tragedy? These were questions everyone was asking, but the answers wouldn't come easily. But here's the thing. Maliek didn't leave the scene in a panic. He didn't rush off, overwhelmed by what he had done. No. He left with the cold, calculated precision of someone who thought they had committed the perfect crime. He believed that leaving the baby alive would confuse investigators, make them think this was something other than premeditated murder. And why did Malik leave the baby unharmed? Was it guilt? Was it a moment of humanity in an otherwise monstrous act? Or was it part of his plan? A way to paint himself as incapable of such a crime? Whatever the reason, it didn't erase what he had done. It didn't bring Carlin back. And it didn't change the fact that his actions were as cruel as they were deliberate. News of Carlin's death spread quickly, shocking her family, her friends, and her community. How could this happen? Who would do such a thing? And most importantly, why? These were the questions everyone wanted answers to. And while investigators were determined to find the truth, Malik and his accomplice, Dolores Delgado, thought they were safe. But as we all know, no crime is perfect. And while Malik believed he had gotten away with murder, the truth was starting to catch up with him. Investigators were closing in, evidence was mounting, and soon, the lies he had built his life around would come crashing down. What kind of person could do something so horrifying? And what do you think motivated Malik to leave the baby unharmed? Was it a moment of guilt? Or something even more calculated? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When investigators arrived at Carlin Ramirez's home, they were greeted with a scene that would haunt even the most seasoned detectives. The lifeless body of a young mother, the silent cries of a baby left behind. It was clear this was no random act of violence. This was personal. And the search for answers began immediately. The first clue? The calculated nature of the crime. There were no signs of forced entry. Whoever did this knew Carlin and knew her well. It didn't take long for suspicions to fall on her husband, Malik Khani. But proving his involvement wouldn't be easy. He was over 450 miles away in South Carolina, or so it seemed. Investigators knew they needed hard evidence to connect him to the crime. This is where technology became their ally. Kearney had been careful, but not careful enough. Cell phone records told a story he hadn't planned on. Pinging off towers along the East Coast, his phone painted a digital trail. A trail that led directly from South Carolina to Severn, Maryland, and back. Investigators now had proof that Kearney wasn't where he claimed to be the night of the murder. But the real breakthrough came from someone investigators didn't expect. Dolores Delgado. As Kearney's mistress and accomplice, Delgado held the key to the entire case. At first, she denied everything, but under pressure, her story began to change. And what she revealed shocked even the investigators. Delgado admitted to helping plan the murder. She confessed to giving Kearney the murder weapon, a gun she had kept hidden for him. She even admitted to crafting an alibi, ensuring that no one would suspect Kearney of being hundreds of miles away from his military base on the night of the crime. Delgado's testimony was chilling in its detail, laying bare the premeditation and coldness behind the act. Her confession was the final nail in the coffin for Malik Khani. With cell phone records, surveillance footage, and Delgado's damning testimony, the evidence against him was overwhelming. In 2016, Khani was arrested and charged with the premeditated murder of Carlin Ramirez. His once hidden rage and jealousy were now laid bare for the world to see. The trial was a devastating experience for Carlin's family. They had already lost a daughter, a sister, a mother. Now they were forced to relive the nightmare through the cold details of the courtroom. Prosecutors painted a picture of a man consumed by jealousy, aided by a mistress who shared his bitterness. Together, they had robbed Carlin of her life and her daughter of her mother. In 2018, Malik Kearney was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. It was a moment of justice, but it could never undo the pain he had caused. As for Dolores Delgado, her cooperation with investigators earned her a reduced sentence. She was given 17 years in prison for her role in the crime, a punishment some felt was far too lenient for someone so deeply involved. To this day, the case of Carlin Ramirez remains a stark reminder of the darkness that can hide behind the people we trust most. A woman full of life and promise was taken far too soon, her dreams shattered by the very people who should have supported her. What do you think? Was justice truly served in this case? Should Dolores Delgado have faced a harsher punishment for her role in this tragedy? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. Carlin Ramirez's story is not just a story of tragedy. It's a story of love that was overshadowed by jealousy, of trust that was shattered, and of betrayal that ended in the most unthinkable way. At just 24 years old, Kerlin had her whole life ahead of her. A promising career in the military, a beautiful daughter she adored, a future she was building with hope and determination. But all of that was stolen from her in a single devastating act of cruelty. A shooting. This case leaves us with so many questions. How could love turn into something so destructive? How could jealousy blind someone to the point of murder? And how do we make sense of the aftermath? A child left motherless, a family left grieving, and a community left searching for answers. Kerlin's daughter will grow up without her mother, but she will also grow up surrounded by the love of her extended family, the people who have vowed to honor Kerlin's memory by giving her daughter the best life possible. Kerlin's family, her friends, and even those who never knew her will carry her story forward. Because stories like this, as tragic as they are, teach us something about the choices we make, the people we trust, and the emotions we let take control. Let Kerlin Ramirez's story be a warning but also a lesson in the importance of confronting jealousy, of seeking help when relationships begin to break, and of valuing the trust we place in the people we love. Love should never be a battlefield, it should never hurt, and it should never end in tragedy. If this story moves you, please take a moment to honor Kerlin's memory by liking this video, sharing it with others, and subscribing to our channel. True crime stories like this uncover the darkest truths, but they also remind us of the importance of compassion, understanding, and love. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.